What's your most soul-crushing experience that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy? I got ripped to shreds by a comedian at an open mic. My girlfriend's response wasn't so funny, it destroyed me, and I don't know how to recover. My girlfriend had been sending me non-stop videos of this local comedian she found on YouTube. He went by Yuban Batran. I took it as a sign and bought us tickets for one of his upcoming shows at a comedy club that wasn't too far from us. I never found him particularly amusing, but the tickets were cheap, so I decided to just make my girlfriend happy, and roll with it. I had never been to a designated comedy club before, so I had no idea what to expect. I definitely didn't expect my life to be uprooted. The venue, it had the vibe of any typical bar in the city. The lights were dim, there were some colored lights bouncing off the wall, so the whole place looked blue and moody. There weren't assigned seats, and we got there kind of early, so we took the seats closest to the stage. Next thing I knew, we were both 2 drinks deep, and feeling good. We should have just left right there. Waiting for him would turn out to be the high point of the night. The comedian finally came out and opened up with some cheesy one-liners to get the crowd warmed up. The crowd was decent. I wouldn't go as far as to say he packed the place, but it wasn't a bad. After his first wave of jokes, I could see him scanning the crowd. I'm not a skinny guy, in fact I'm far from it. My nickname in high school was Jelly Roll. I started to get nervous because I knew that I would be a likely target. It'd be far too easy. My girlfriend must have noticed that I was a little bit uneasy, because I could feel her give me a side eye, and put her hand on top of mine on the table. The comedian did another couple of casual jokes about 911, before he stopped his scan, and his gaze landed directly on me, and my girlfriend. Oh no, my heart sank to the legs of the chair as he asked us, where we were coming from. I lied and said Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Something about this approach made me want to remain as anonymous as possible. Everyone laughed at that answer, and I think that made this guy a little self-conscious, because it was the hardest laugh he had gotten all night. He proceeded, "Oh, so are you guys cousins?" Crickets. Part of me felt bad. I started to gain a little sympathy for the man on stage. I laughed it off and said, "No, oh got it, so you guys are brother and sister." "Not quite." He did an exaggerated jaw drop and turned to the audience. Chuckles. He turned back to my girlfriend and said, "Please don't tell me you're on a date with the Pillsbury Doughboy over here." And I could feel a familiar sting swirling in my stomach. She said, "Of course I am, that's bae." I prepared myself for the inevitable verbal fling, that I was certain was on the way. It was so much worse. He went on to absolutely fry me in front of everybody. I couldn't even hate, but some of the stuff was genuinely funny. I froze up, my whole body tensed with restrained rage. I had learned that in these situations it's better to just laugh along with the group, and pretend it didn't bother me. At one point he said, "This guy looks like a Teletubby who gets the munchies without ever smoking a gram of Mary Jane." For some reason that was the one that really hit home for me. I don't know if it was being compared to a Teletubby or if it was the fact that I really smoke every day, but something got to me. I forced a smile through gritted teeth, as I sat there and took my beating like a docile good pork roll. My girlfriend turned to me again. I could feel her examining my face. This made tears that weren't there before suddenly start welling up in my eyes. She took her hand off of mine, and crossed her arms. I didn't want to turn my head to look at her. I didn't want this guy to know that he was really affecting me. I stayed locked on the stage, but I could see a face of disgust from the corner of my eye. Ironically, the weight jokes had made me feel skinnier, because when the comedian finally moved on I felt about 20 pounds lighter. Him moving on was only the beginning of my problems that night. My girlfriend was a little too disconnected with me when I asked her if she wanted another drink anytime. I would ask her anything actually, or try to make a little side joke, she would just shut it down immediately. After the show was over we headed back out to my car. She didn't say a word. I plugged in my address to the GPS and I could tell she had been mulling this over. It almost felt rehearsed when she said take me home. I didn't even question it. The car ride was the most awkward moment. It wasn't even that bad between us on the first date, when we didn't know each other. When we got to her place I parked out front. She just sat in the passenger seat silent for a few minutes. Finally she said, "I don't think this is going to work." I was used to rejection my whole life. I had been rejected, what I was dealing with was nonsense conflict, and a 3-year relationship. I was dumbfounded. It felt like my heart had just been hit by a bus. She stared at me waiting for a response. I couldn't give her one. She continued, "That's exactly why you're like a big baby. I don't even think you're capable of fighting for anything." She was trying to get me to react, but I just couldn't. She whipped the car door open, and got out before slamming the door in my face. She left me with one last hit bit: "How can I know you're going to defend me when you're too weak to defend yourself from fat jokes in front of a crowd of people laughing at you?" I just stared straight ahead. The tears were back. She scoffed and slammed the door before heading right inside hers. Now it felt like she had taken the bus and reversed back over my heart. I was crushed. I was praying that she was just a little more faded and emotional from the 2 drinks in our follow-up phone conversation. The next day she told me she was serious. She said she needed some space and that we probably shouldn't talk for a while. I respected it. She had left her hoodie in my car, so I called her 2 days after that. The phone didn't even ring. That was the last time I've heard her voice since. When I texted her, my messages were green. Some dude named Steve was on the other end telling me I had the wrong number. It was over. All the work, time, energy, money, and most importantly love, had been thrown out the window because of a comedy show. Good thing I slept with her father beforehand, or I'd be far more sad than I am right now. Just kidding.